Let's go Ravens! Something is happening behind the scenes in Baltimore that could completely change the direction of this offense, and trust me, not everyone is seeing it yet. There's a move being discussed that could either take this team to another level or spark a debate that divides the fan base. But before I break it all down, make sure you hit that like button right now if you truly believe this team is heading back to the top. And drop a comment saying, I trust this team, we're coming back stronger, because I want to see how many of you are still all in on the Ravens this season. Now let's get straight into it, because this is the kind of move that could quietly reshape this offense in a very serious way. According to reports, tight end David Njoku, coming off his time with the Cleveland Browns, has already visited the Baltimore Ravens. And just that alone should get your attention. This isn't speculation, this isn't rumor mill nonsense, this is a real visit, which means real interest from the front office. And if you know how this organization operates, you know they don't bring players in just to waste time. When the Ravens open the door, it's because they're considering making something happen. Now think about the current situation. The Ravens lost Isaiah Likely, and that's not a small thing. That's a player who brought explosiveness, energy, and versatility to the offense. And what's been bothering a lot of fans lately is this narrative comparing Njoku to Likely, almost like one needs to be put down for the other to be lifted up. That's not what this is about. This is about replacing production and adding a different dimension to the offense, not rewriting what Likely meant to this team. And when you look at David Njoku, you're not just talking about a tight end, you're talking about an athlete. Someone with real speed, strong hands, physicality, and the ability to make plays after the catch. Even looking at his past production, 33 catches for 293 yards last season, 64 catches the year before, and an even bigger year before that, you can see flashes of what he can do. But numbers don't even tell the full story. Ravens fans have seen him for years in this division. You know exactly how frustrating he can be to defend. Now imagine that same player on your side. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Njoku has played with multiple quarterbacks in Cleveland, different systems, different styles, constant changes. But none of those quarterbacks are Lamar Jackson. That's the key difference. This wouldn't just be a team change for Njoku, it would be a completely new experience. A more stable, more explosive offensive environment where his skill set could be maximized in ways we haven't consistently seen before. And let's talk scheme for a second. The Ravens are shifting. There's talk about moving away from using a traditional fullback after Patrick Ricard's departure, which means tight ends are going to take on even more responsibility. Not just catching passes, but blocking, lining up in multiple positions, doing a little bit of everything. And that's exactly where Njoku fits perfectly. He's not afraid of contact, he can block, and he can still be a playmaker when the ball is in his hands. Pair that with Mark Andrews, who is looking to bounce back after what can only be described as an inconsistent and somewhat awkward season, and suddenly you have a very intriguing combination. Andrews still has elite ability, but his involvement last year felt on and off. There were moments, sure, but not the consistent impact we're used to seeing. Adding Njoku wouldn't replace him, it would complement him. It would take pressure off and create opportunities for both players to thrive. And here's something else fans are already thinking about, the mentality. Njoku brings a certain edge. A certain intensity, sometimes even a bit of crazy, in the best possible football sense. The kind of player who shows up ready for any condition, any moment, any challenge. That energy fits Baltimore. It always has. So now the question becomes, what do the Ravens do next? Because bringing him in for a visit means interest is real. And if the front office believes this is the move that elevates the offense, especially around Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, then this could come together quickly. But there's still a bigger picture to consider here. If the Ravens do sign David Njoku, does that change their entire draft strategy? Does it mean they hold off on selecting a tight end early? Or do they still invest in the future while trying to win right now? Because this decision doesn't just impact one position, it could shape how the entire offense looks heading into the season. When you really sit back and think about it, if the Baltimore Ravens finalize a deal with David Njoku, this isn't just about replacing Isaiah Likely, it's about redefining how this offense attacks defenses. You're talking about an offense that would feature Lamar Jackson orchestrating everything, Derrick Henry bringing that physical dominance in the run game, and then two completely different styles of tight ends with Mark Andrews and Njoku creating mismatches all over the field. And that's where things could get dangerous. Because Mark Andrews, even coming off a season that felt inconsistent, is still one of the most reliable red zone threats in the league. Defenses know what he can do. They game plan for him. But if you add Njoku into that mix, someone who brings more explosiveness after the catch, someone who can stretch plays and turn short gains into big ones, you're forcing defenses into impossible decisions. Do you double Andrews? Do you spy Njoku? Do you stack the box for Henry? Or do you try to contain Lamar Jackson? You simply can't cover everything. And that's why this move feels like more than just a nice addition. This feels strategic. Now let's go deeper into the roster building side of things. Because one of the biggest discussions internally right now has to be about the draft. If you sign Njoku, you're no longer desperate at tight end. You're no longer in a position where you need to spend an early pick on someone who may or may not contribute right away. And as we all know, rookie tight ends rarely come in and dominate immediately. It takes time, development, adjustment to the NFL level. So by bringing in a proven veteran like Njoku, you're buying yourself flexibility. You can still draft a tight end, but now it's on your terms. You can develop that player properly without rushing them into a major role. Or, if the board falls a certain way, you can completely shift your focus to another position of need and maximize the value of your picks. And that's something this front office loves, options. Another angle that can't be ignored is the AFC North dynamic. If this deal gets done, Njoku would have the opportunity to face the Cleveland Browns twice a year. And you already know how that goes in this division. Those games are personal. There's history, there's emotion, there's intensity. Adding a player who knows the division rival inside and out, that's always a plus. That's always something teams quietly value. And let's not overlook the timing of all this. Free agency moves like this don't happen in isolation. They connect to everything else the team is planning. The Ravens clearly understand that they need to reload, not rebuild. They want to stay in that Super Bowl conversation. And to do that, they need to surround Lamar Jackson with as much talent and versatility as possible. Njoku fits that vision. But of course, none of this matters unless the deal actually gets done. Interest is one thing. A visit is one thing. But closing the deal? That's what matters. That's where Eric DaCosta and the front office have to step in and make the call. Because opportunities like this don't always stay on the table for long. And if the Ravens truly believe that Njoku can elevate this offense, that he can be that missing piece alongside Mark Andrews, then this is the moment to act. Because imagine this offense clicking at full strength. Imagine the balance, the unpredictability, the pressure it would put on every single defense they face. That's how you compete for a Super Bowl. That's how you stay ahead in a conference that keeps getting tougher every year. And this is exactly where things could take an unexpected turn. Because while everything we've discussed makes perfect sense on paper, the Ravens also have to think one step ahead. If they bring in David Njoku, they're not just adding talent, they're committing to a certain identity on offense. A heavier use of tight ends, more versatility in formations, and a system that leans into mismatches rather than relying on a traditional structure. And that could signal a bigger philosophical shift that we haven't fully seen yet. Think about it like this. Without a fullback in the picture, those responsibilities don't just disappear, they get redistributed. And tight ends become even more valuable in that kind of system. Blocking, motioning, lining up in different spots, creating confusion before the snap. That's where players like Njoku thrive. That's where he can give you that extra layer that defenses struggle to read. But there's also a risk factor here that can't be ignored. Because when you invest in a veteran player, especially one expected to play a significant role, you're betting on consistency and availability. And while Njoku has shown flashes of high-level production, there have also been moments where injuries or timing limited his impact. So the Ravens have to ask themselves, are they getting the version of Njoku that can be a difference maker week in and week out? Or are they getting a player who still needs the right system and rhythm to fully unlock his potential? Now, here's where Lamar Jackson becomes the ultimate X factor. Because if there's one thing we've learned over the years, it's that Lamar elevates the players around him. He creates opportunities that don't exist in other offenses. Plays break down, and